On my 70th birthday, I picked up the whiskey bottle I knew my children had poisoned. They thought I would drink first, grow weaker, and hand them my house. Instead, I poured their glasses, made them drink in front of me, and revealed the police were already at the table. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're tuning in from. I am a quiet man most days. My wife, June, used to say I am calm the way a lake looks calm, still on the surface, deep and cold beneath. She has been gone 11 years now. I keep the house the way she left it, the basket of pine cones by the fireplace, the cream curtains with the faint blue stitching, the dented copper pot with the wooden spoon nobody can bring themselves to throw away. The house has its own heartbeat. The hallway clock ticks like a throat clearing before a difficult conversation. The maple floorboards speak when the weather changes. If you stand in the dining room where the morning light lands in a perfect square on the table, you can still hear June's laugh under the noise of everything else. That is where they wanted to renovate. Open the space, my son, Evan, said. Light, flow, modern. The first time he said it, it was charity in his voice. The second time, it was ownership. My daughter, Claire, nodded along, eyes scanning the walls like she was in a showroom. It was a passing comment over Sunday pie 2 months before my birthday, the first hairline crack that would spiderweb across my life. It was a story about hunger and what it turns family into when they decide they deserve more than they have been given. It is a story about a bottle of whiskey, amber-like afternoon sun, a bottle I had promised myself I would open when I turned 70 because that is a big round number and a man ought to mark the milestones he gets to keep. We always had a tradition. On birthdays, I pour 2 fingers of whiskey for myself in a crystal glass June and I bought on a road trip when we were too young to afford it, and I take the glass out to the porch. I name the people I am grateful for. Then I take 1 sip, a slow one, and I watch the trees. I thought it would be like that this year. I would name June. I would name my grandchildren, Noah with his shoelaces always tangled, Lila who draws with her tongue poking out, and little Gracie who is 3 and insists she is 4. I would name the cherry tree we planted when we bought the house and the way the blossoms fall like paper snow in spring. Instead, one afternoon in April, I walked into my kitchen and heard my children making plans to kill me slowly. It is not that they used that word. Murder belongs to television shows where the music tells you when to be scared. They used other phrases, careful phrases, as if the syllables might stain their mouths. They were in the breakfast nook with their heads bent close, the way children conspire about cookies. I am telling you, Claire said, it will be gradual. No drama. The doctor already thinks he is forgetful. He mixes names sometimes. He has always mixed names, Evan said. He called me the dog for a year. They both laughed. I stopped in the hallway and did not cough, did not tap my cane, did not announce myself. The hallway clock took a clean breath. I listened. It starts with the whiskey, Claire said. He will not stop if you ask. We tried. He deserves to enjoy his birthday, right? Let him enjoy it. After, we just help it along. We cannot make him drunk every day, Evan said, low and struggling to be reasonable. That is not a plan. And I do not like talking about it like this. Claire's voice sharpened the way a blade does when someone touches it to a whetstone. Nobody said drunk. You never listen. Just weaken him. Not dangerous. Just enough that he will need assistance. Memory fuzzy. A couple of falls. Then Dr. Patel talks about safety. Adult protective is called. We are not the bad guys, we are the good kids who step up. We get the power of attorney. We move him somewhere nice and sell this old house while the market is high. You said yourself the roof needs replacing. Are you paying for a new roof? Are you paying for the taxes? For God's sake, Evan, grow up. Silence. A chair leg creaked. What? He said finally, and the word sounded like a man stepping into cold water. Exactly what would you put in the whiskey? I am not saying it out loud, she said. You do not say it out loud. I have it sorted. I stood in the hallway with my hand on the door jamb. June's shawl hung there on a hook, soft as a breath, and I pressed my knuckles into it so I would not walk in and break things. I have been angry in my life, but I learned after June died that grief teaches you the difference between rage and resolve. Rage is hot and ruins your hands. Resolve is cool and makes your hands precise. I have told myself the lies every parent tells, that my children are good at their core, that they would not go too far, that their worst day does not define them. I pictured them as small again, Evan bringing me a plastic dinosaur after I lost the job at the plant, whispering, "You can have mine, Daddy." Claire refusing to go to kindergarten without a negotiation worthy of the Senate, then finally agreeing if I promised mac and cheese that night. The memory tried to soften me. It almost did. But then I heard their chairs scrape and the tap of Claire's fingernail on the table and her voice, brisk as a ledger. I already looked at contractors, she said. The ones that do the fast turnarounds. They can take down that wall, resurface, put in cheap stone, and it will photograph great. We post it as, grandfather's home, lovingly updated. It will sell in a week. This is his home, Evan said. I heard how close to tears he was and wanted to be sorry for him. This is our mother's home. We were raised here. And we cannot be sentimental, she said. He cannot keep a mausoleum forever. We will give him a nice room with a window. He likes trees, we will find one with trees. You will visit on Sundays. I will bring the girls. It will be kinder. It will be safer. Do you want to come over and find him on the floor? Because I do not. I do not want to find him on the floor, he said, and I felt the words move through the house like a draft I could not shut. But we cannot, Claire, what you are talking about is, it is not right. It is necessary, she said. There is a difference. It is necessary. People have done worse under the banner of those two words. They left not long after, unaware of me in the hallway, unaware of how their words moved in and settled like smoke into the curtains. I went to the porch and sat down and watched the cherry tree scrape the sky with thin branches. Birds fussed in the hedges. I breathed. Then I made some tea and called my lawyer. I do not act without paper. A man who has worked and saved and paid and buried the person he thought he would die after knows the value of paper. Paper gives shape to promises. Paper puts a leash on grief. The lawyer is a woman named Myra who does not talk more than she needs to. She was kind when June died without being sweet, and I respect that in a person. We met in her office that smells like new envelopes. I told her, in plain language, what I had heard. I did not dramatize. Myra's eyebrows did not climb her forehead. They twitched once. May I say something hard, she said. You may. The law does not punish wickedness, she said. It punishes acts. That line matters here. If your children are speaking in suggestion and implication, there may not be a thing the state can do until there is an act to point to. I do not like saying it. I have a father myself. But I would be doing you a disservice if I nodded and promised we could file a petition and hand them consequences. We cannot arrest a plan that is deciding what words it will be. What if I got them to say it? I asked. What if I got them to say it out loud? It helps, she said. It does not heal everything. But it helps. And evidence of tampering would be decisive. Text messages, video, something that shows an attempt. We are in the business of proof. I am a grandfather, I said. I thought I was in the business of love. You are, she said. Get proof anyway. So that is what I did. Cool hands, precise hands, one careful step after another. I began with the bottle. The whiskey was a gift from my brother the year before June got sick, the good brown stuff from a distillery that thinks its barrels are churches. I kept it in a cabinet in the dining room with 2 spare crystal glasses. I bought a second bottle, same brand, same label, and I learned the difference in the tiny nick on the cork of mine where I had pried and thought better of it one New Year's. I also bought a small set of tamper-evident seals that look like nothing and say everything, the kind with tiny fibers that fray if scratched. If you are reading this and nodding along for a project of your own, stop. Do not use what I am telling you to hurt someone. Do not hurt people. That is the lesson of this story. Precision is not an excuse for cruelty. I set a small camera inside the cabinet. It has a lens the size of a sesame seed and lights that see in the dark. I placed a second above the threshold to the kitchen. I made a third silly, obvious, blinking red camera on the bookshelf to give them something to notice. Then I changed the will. We wrote a trust that would take the house for me the way a lake takes a stone, quietly, permanently, and without argument. I would live there until I died, and after I died the house would pass to a charity that renovates homes and gives them to veterans. If I wanted to reverse it, I could not do it alone. June's absence would finally be present in the law, her name would co-sign my grief. There was a clause that made Myra smile when I asked for it: if any person attempted to cause my incapacity, to gain control by deceit or harm, they would be barred from any inheritance I controlled. Myra called it a no contest with teeth. I called it a line in the sand. I wrote letters. One for Claire, one for Evan, and one for the grandchildren when they were older. I put those letters in the safe with our wedding rings and the keys to the old cedar chest in the attic, the chest where June's love letters still smell like lilac some days if you open it just right. I wrote a 4th letter labeled "If I Forget," an instruction to myself. It says, "You are angry, do not be cruel. You are hurt, do not be childish. Do not set a fire that will burn their children." I wanted to give them a chance to stop. My first tool was conversation. I took Evan to the diner on Maple Street, the one with the sugar packets in a brass bowl you always knock over with your elbow. The waitress calls me Han and brings me the coffee the way I like it. I told Evan he had something weighing him down and asked him to put it on the table between the ketchup and the napkin holder. I told him I am 70 soon and I deserve the truth. He looked at his hands. He started to speak and stopped. He started again. "Dad," he said, "Claire thinks." "What do you think?" I said. "I think she is wrong," he said. "But I think she does not think she is wrong, and that scares me." "Has she asked you to do something?" I asked. "Has she asked you to buy something, bring something, sign something?" He shook his head. He pressed his thumb hard against a crack in the laminate table. "I would never," he said, and his voice was 5 again, messy with tears he did not want to cry. "I would never hurt you." "You are hurting me now," I said, and folded my hand over his. We sat like that a long time, two men holding the weight of a house between them without saying the word house out loud. I told Claire I was thinking of changing the will, and she smiled the smile people smile when they think they are better at the world than the world is at them. "Dad," she said, "do not be morbid. You have lots of years. We will handle things when we need to." "When we need to," I repeated. She laughed. She stood in the doorway with her keys already in her hand, polished and ready. "I have gotten some numbers," she said. "On the house. For when the time comes. It is smart to be ready. I will take care of everything." "Tell me what you will do," I said. "It will ease my mind to hear your plan." "Oh, Dad," she said. "You will see. You will not have to worry. Evasion is an answer." I was kinder that day than she deserved. I should have been harder maybe. Your children are for forgiving, that is the trap of being a parent. You make excuses so hard they turn to bones. If there had been an opening, a confession, even a weak one with holes you could see daylight through, I would have pulled on it. There was not. There was only a date on the calendar with a red circle around it and the sound, late at night, of a cork turning under someone's impatient fingers. A week before my birthday, I baited the trap. I told them both I was sticking to tradition. The bottle would be on the dining room sideboard. I said I wanted the dinner here, not at a restaurant. I said I had a speech planned and would like everyone in their good clothes. Claire said of course in a voice that patted my hand with the back of its fingers. Evan said fine in a voice that could not look me in the eyes. I asked if we could include a few people beyond family. "Friends," I said. "I want the house full." "As long as it is not too many," said Claire, thinking of the staging she had already planned. "It will not be," I said, and I invited Myra and her husband, and a neighbor who used to be a city detective before his knees betrayed him, and a volunteer from the Veterans Charity who had cried in my driveway the first time he saw the plaque with June's name I had put on the cherry tree. I did not tell my children that I also invited two people who carry badges in their pockets for days when nobody wants to say the quiet part out loud. In the morning on the day before my birthday, I left the house to get ice. That is what I told the camera on the threshold, and that is what I told the small camera in the cabinet. I walked around the block. My neighbor waved. I completed the loop slow enough to give them time to do what they had already decided to do. When I came back, the cabinet camera had seen everything I expected it to see and more. It had seen my son's hand hover, hesitate, and retreat. It had seen my daughter slide something from her purse into her hand and work at the cork with her thumb the way a person unscrews a jar in a stranger's kitchen when they want to look like they belong. It had seen her tilt and tip and the slow glug of wrongness. It had seen my son look away. I did not watch all of it then. You do not stand in your living room and watch your daughter teach your house a new language for betrayal. I looked enough to know the law would nod. I looked enough to know my anger was a steady pulse, not a hurricane. I took the bottle they had touched. I set it on the sideboard with 2 crystal glasses and a bowl of citrus wedges because that is what Claire always sets out to make photographs pretty. In the cabinet, I placed the second bottle in the back corner. I swapped the cork on the bottle they had touched with a cork that had, earlier, sat on the mouth of the second bottle. It is a trick with no malice that lawyers call chain of custody. Sometimes justice is a magic show with paperwork. I also placed a small damp strip of test paper along the inside of the cork they had pried. It was the kind that blushes under ultraviolet light if it has been kissed by a certain class of household chemicals that do not belong in a drink and should never be anywhere near a grandfather. It is not a weapon, it is a question the universe answers in color. I did one last thing. I called my doctor. Run a general panel on me tomorrow, I said. First thing. Do not ask why. I will ask why, he said. That is my job. I will be fine, I said. I am doing a thing that hurts and helps and I need you to play your part. You are not cryptic like this, he said. I am 70 tomorrow, I said. Let me be a little theatrical. The day came heavy with heat. The cherry tree was a green cloud. I put on my suit. It ballooned a bit at the waist, old men shrink. My grandchildren arrived like bright birds. Lila drew a portrait of me that looks like a scarecrow and kissed my cheek with all the abandon in the world. Noah had tied his tie himself and it slumped like a tired tongue. Gracie was, adamantly, 4. My children arrived last. Evan's eyes were puddles he could not step around. Claire's hair was perfect in a way that takes an hour in a mirror to achieve. She looks most like June. For a moment, that almost broke me. We ate the roast my neighbor brought and the potatoes Myra's husband mashed like he was negotiating a treaty. We told old stories and nobody mentioned the new one we were living through. I had made a speech in my head, but what I said when I stood was shorter. I have learned, I said, that the house is not made of wood and brick. It is made of the people who stood in it and the promises they kept. Tonight we stand and try to keep one or two. Thank you for being here. Thank you for not leaving when it is hard. Claire's hands were folded, the left thumb worrying a place where her ring should be. Evan's knuckles were white around his fork. June's shawl lay on the back of my chair like a benediction. Dessert was a cake the color of wet sand with white icing that tasted like nothing and sweetness. Time for the toast, I said. I walked to the sideboard and lifted the bottle. It was heavier than the air and lighter than a lie. I poured one glass, then two, then poured for everyone at the table who was old enough and wanted it. Claire took one. Evan took one and put it down and picked it up and put it down. Myra's husband waved off, he does not drink. The volunteer from the charity took a small splash and met my eyes above it. Before we drink, I said, I want to try a different tradition. What? Claire said, too fast. In our family, I said, the host pours last. It is a courtesy. It is an old thing my father did, and his father before him. It is simple, the host pours last, the guests drink first. To show everyone the bottle is generous and safe. That is not a real thing, Claire said. It is tonight, I said. Before she could think of a reason it was not, the front door opened. The two people with the badges I had invited stepped in, not loud, not dramatic, and stood beside my neighbor, who had stood as well. I did not turn on any music. There was a hum in the room anyway. Fear makes its own hum. What is this? Claire said. She smiled at the officers as if she could cut the scene out and paste it somewhere else. Please, I said, just drink. She lifted her glass. The angle of the crystal broke the light into rainbows. She took a sip. The faces people make when their mouth betrays them are interesting. Surprise is a blossom with pointed petals, shame is a pocket that turns inside out. Claire drank and her eyes flicked to the side and then to me. Evan drank and winced and then, because he has always been an honest man even when he is weak, looked at me as if asking permission to cry. What did you do? Claire said. What is this? The bottle you touched, I said, was the bottle you made wrong. The glass you are drinking from holds a pour from the second bottle I keep in the cabinet. This tastes like, she stopped. She is clever. She knows not to hand me words. She looked at the cabinet. She looked at the doorway where the camera sat like a fly. She looked at the officers. "Would you mind," I said to the volunteer from the charity, offering him a small flashlight, "shining this on the cork I am holding?" He clicked. The cork sighed a radiant blue at one spot like a bruise under skin. Myra nodded in a way juries understand. The officer with the softer eyes took one step forward. "I would like to show you something else," I said, and the television flicked to life. I had learned how to connect it to my phone the night before, cursing and grim-mouthed, shoulders hunched. The angle was strange, a little high from the cabinet, but even a dull person could see what they were seeing: my dining room, my sideboard, my daughter's purse opening like a clam and the tilt of wrongdoing pouring out. She did not look like a villain. She looked like a woman putting vanilla into a cake. That is how harm looks a lot of the time. I did not play the whole thing. I paused in the middle, and we all stood with our mouths open while the still image of a hand hovered above a bottle waiting to ruin an old man's throat. "The chemical test on the cork is presumptive," Myra said, voice even and unused to the messy love of a family table. "The video is persuasive. If I were advising your children, I would tell them to be quiet for a while." "This is ridiculous," Claire said. This is entrapment. You cannot, you are not, she was a smart girl once. She forgets that words have shape. She threw them and they hit the ground and broke. "I asked you to tell me the truth so your punishment would be easier," I said to both of them, face to face with the children I raised. "You chose silence. Then you chose action." Evan lowered his head. I saw the boy in the man and felt my heart strain to forgive. But forgiveness, tonight, was not the kind of love anyone needed. Justice was. I nodded at the officer with the kind eyes. He spoke in a low voice about statements and rights and counsel. He was careful with my house. He did not bump any of June's things. "I am not going to jail because my father wanted to play detective," Claire said. Her chin lifted. "You are senile. You cannot do this. We will take care of things now." "I changed the ownership of this house 2 weeks ago," I said. "You will not take care of anything here. If I die, this place becomes a home for a sergeant and his family who have earned more from this country than either of you will ever get from me. If I live, I will die here when it is my time. You will not move me. The papers are in order. Your moving vans will be very bored." "You are making a mistake," she said. She meant, "You are not doing what I want." She meant, "You forgot I am your daughter and that is supposed to be a key that opens every door." "I do not think so," I said. I looked at Evan. "I know you did not pour anything," I said. "I saw your hand stop. I know what you are. You know what you are." He nodded. That did not save him from what needed to happen, but sometimes people should hear the truth about themselves before the machine of the world begins to grind. The officer explained what would happen, how there would be questions and then more questions, how this was not a television show and there would be no dramatic slam of the door. He spoke of release and charges and words like attempt, intent, and elder abuse, and my daughter's mouth hardened into a straight line that looked a lot like a wall she had built around herself. My grandchildren were taken to the living room with ice cream by my neighbor's wife, who told them a story about a rabbit who learned to stop bragging. The cake melted sweetly into plates nobody wanted to finish. It is a harsh thing to see your blood treated as a suspect. Every cell in me wanted to soften and say, "Enough, this is enough." But love without a backbone gets dragged. So I stood up straight and held the room steady. We did not clap. We did not shout. There was no soundtrack heavy with drums. After the officers left with Claire and a stack of polite forms, Evan remained at the table, hands empty, face pale. He said, "Dad, and then he did not say anything else for a long time and we let the silence sit. "Come by tomorrow at 7, I said finally. "We will go to the doctor. After, we will talk about what happens next. Do not bring anyone who uses the word necessary to describe things that are not." He nodded. He looked like a man who had just walked across a frozen lake and understood, mid-step, how thick ice needs to be and how often it is not. That night, after the house emptied and the cherry tree slid against the windows like an old cat huffing for attention, I took my letter if I forget from the safe. I read it. I folded it back and put it away. I sat in the quiet and poured what I considered a real glass from the second bottle, the untouched one, and I went to the porch and watched the dark. I named my gratitude. I named my grief. I named my wife. Then I took a slow sip and waited for the morning to break. Morning is honest in a way people are not. It does not lie about what was done in the night. My doctor took my blood and gave me a lecture I did not deserve and then apologized mid-sentence because he remembered I am not a child. The tests were clean. The officers had logged the bottle properly. Myra sent me a text that looked like a nurse's note but felt like a victory. My neighbor who used to be a detective sat at my table and talked me through the timeline for what would happen to my daughter. He did not pretend it would be quick. He did not pretend it would be easy. "Your son," he said. "He will try to make it smaller. He will tell himself the story where he is not responsible because he did not hold the bottle. He is responsible. Not legally. But in the house. You should tell him so." I did. Evan showed up at 7. He had shaved. That is a kind of apology in a man sometimes. He sat across from me and said he would give a statement. He said he would testify if needed. He said he had failed his sister by letting her think her worst idea was the smartest idea she had ever had. He said he had failed me by thinking love meant silence. I said, yes, and we were quiet some more. Then I told him what I had done with the house, and his shoulders lowered because he understood some things could not be undone and that was merciful. What happens next, people always ask. The story wants to end on the big reveal and the clap, but life does not let you stick your landing and cut to black. Life makes you drive home from the courthouse hungry. Life makes you call the school to make sure the grandchildren's lunches were packed. There were hearings. Claire tried to smooth the wrinkles out of a dress that would not be smoothed and told someone else's version of our story. Judges like proof the way gardeners like rain. There was proof. The proof had timestamps and angles and light that does not blink. The chemistry was boring in the righteous way you want chemistry to be boring when it is on your side. The words on the paperwork were heavy and cold and precise: attempt, incapacitate, elder, exploitation. Claire's face went still when she heard them, then furious, then still again. Anger is a wheel. It goes where it wants. She did not go to prison for the rest of her life, that is not how it works. She did not even go for long. She lost her job and her new car and the way her friends stepped aside for her at brunch. She lost her moral standing and, with it, the kind of power that makes people say yes out of habit. The court ordered things. The law made her sit in rooms where people say the words accountability and harm out loud. She did not love those rooms. She liked the rooms where she got to teach. It is good for a person to be a student sometimes. Evan gave his statement. He wept. He did not ask me to forgive him. He knew that was not a thing you can ask for like a salt shaker. He did not stand with his sister in court. He sat with me. He rubbed his knee the way his grandfather did when he was nervous. He took his children to the playground and said, "Grandpa is brave, and I do not know if that is true, but I will take it." He sold the pocket listing he and Claire had quietly put up and brought me the receipt like a child bringing home a B on a test he worked very hard for and knows is not the grade you frame. He apologized without using the word sorry, the way men sometimes do when they are trying to make a change that will last. There were people in the neighborhood who took sides. There always are. Some said I had set a trap. Some said I had washed my dirty laundry in public and it had stained the block. Some brought casseroles and left them on the porch without knocking, a kindness with a coward's mask. The grandchildren heard things and that was the worst part. I sat with them and I told them the story the way you tell a story to children, with edges rounded and monsters turned into fog. They loved their mother still. They were right to. Love does not end when a person is wrong. It adds a room to itself and you learn to live with the draft. I made the house into what June would have wanted it to be, not a museum, but a place that breathes. A crew from the Veterans Charity came on Saturdays. They fixed things I did not know were broken and tightened things I had given up on being tight. They brought sandwiches and spirit levels and stories about weather. They gave me a step stool I could put faith in again. The sergeant who will live here when I die brought his wife and they sat at my table and told me about a garden they want to grow. I told them where the sun is kind and where it is mean. I taught them the clock's cough. On my 71st birthday, I poured one glass. I went to the porch. The cherry tree had fattened in a way that said it had survived the same weather as me and made a plan anyway. I named June. People think grief ends, it does not. It grows patient, that is all. I named Evan. I named Claire. A story like this wants a clean ending where the villain gets a neat punishment that satisfies a narrative urge. Lives are slower. There will be years ahead where I stand in a hardware aisle and see a woman with my daughters walk and I will forgive her because my body will think it is my own. There will be mornings where I will forget what the word necessary did in my house. There will be nights where I will re-watch the video when I should be asleep and then I will lock the phone and feel like a man who did a thing he had to do and hates that is the answer. I wrote Claire another letter. It was like walking across an empty room. I told her there is a door open here if she learns the difference between help and harm. I told her truth is the only key. I did not say I am ready to see her. I did not say I am not. I left the letter in the safe next to the others. People are always putting things away against a day that may never come. I am a man who has built a life out of things that outlast people. Even that is not forever. After the hearings, after the papers and the words that make your stomach drop, Myra came by with her husband. We sat at the table. We drank coffee that had gone cold because we talked too much and forgot to drink it. She said, "That was awful," and I said, "Yes," and then we laughed because sometimes a single true word is a relief. "Do you want to sell?" she asked me, not because she wanted the business, but because she was the kind of person who asks if a thing is hurting you even if it looks pretty. "No," I said. "I am not finished with this place. June is still in the corners. The house will teach me how to leave when it is time." She nodded. She does not fill silence to make herself feel important. I appreciate that in a world that will not stop talking. When she and her husband left, I walked them to the porch. The cherry tree shook itself like a dog out of water. The light hit the side of the house and turned the paint into something that gleamed. The night my daughter poured a plan into my drink, I learned something ugly. that love is not a vaccination against greed. I also learned something finer, that precision can be mercy. I did not set out to ruin her. I set out to save myself and, in saving myself, draw a map she might someday follow back to us. Punishment is not the same thing as revenge. Revenge is a heat. Punishment, when it is right, is a map with a star that says, "You are here. Now walk somewhere else." I do not know if she will. That is the part of the story nobody can write for me. I can hope. I can hold the door without standing in it. That is what being a father is, what being a grandfather is, holding the door with one hand and the memory of a house with the other, the way a man balances 2 glasses of whiskey and refuses to spill what matters. On my 70th birthday, in the middle of my dining room, I made my children drink first. It was not triumph. It was not spite. It was proof. They chose their poison, I chose my glass. I did not finish my toast that night. So I will finish it now, year too late and still right on time, to truth, to the room you cannot sell, to the hard kind of love that does not lie. To the house that will outlive us all.
Hello everyone, and thank you for watching. I truly hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel to help support the creation of more stories like this. Have a great day or evening.